What's up, party people? Let's get into it. First up, we've got a novella from Jules Verne, and that's For the Flag, also translated as Facing the Flag. Jules Verne, of course, being French, so he wrote in French. This one is early sci-fi. I'm not sure what year it was written in. I think Verne was born 1828, so mid 19th century. The plot basically is that some dude invents like this catastrophic weapon that kind of prefigures the nuclear bomb, and the government like won't believe him or fund him, so these like revolutionaries or like pirates like capture him and bring him to their base so he can start working on this weapon. That's all I know about it. So it's pretty short. How many pages? Let's see. 185. So cool. I'm looking forward to reading that. Next up, we have something more contemporary. I don't have many books in my library. Can I call it a library? On my shelves that are still alive. But this is one of them, and that's Lois Lowry, American author who is famous for The Giver. Okay, that's the book where they take away emotion and everyone's just the same. And this one guy inherits the role of keeping the memories, and he wrestles with all these themes of emotion and good and evil, things like that. So this is the sequel to The Giver. Apparently there's 4 books. It's like a tetralogy, and it's called Gathering Blue. Apparently it's about a girl who is disabled but learns to dye thread, and then for some reason you can't make blue thread. No one knows how to do it. That's all I know about it. So anyways, Lois, I think I'm saying that right, Lois Lowry, famous American author, so yeah, happy to pick that one up as well. I don't know too much about her as a person, though. Usually I try to include a biographical note or two about the author, but sorry. Next up, I have a very unique book about someone who's almost contemporary. I think he died recently, 2016 maybe, which, wow, that's 9 years ago. That's crazy. Anyways, that is none other than Umberto Eco, and he's famous for his The Name of the Rose, and also for Foucault's Pendulum. Now, the allusion in the title, Foucault, is not to Michel Foucault, the famous sociologist, but instead to Jean Foucault, who was a French physicist who invented a pendulum that proved like the rotation of the Earth or something like that. Anyways, this book is about conspiracy theories, and it has a reference to Kabbalah and like other Jewish mystic esoteric stuff. So Umberto Eco, famous Italian. Ooh, look at that. There's a cute little bookmark inside. I love finding that. Nice. Anyways, Umberto Eco, Italian guy. He has 2 houses in Milan, or not Milan, 2 houses in Italy. One's in Milan. I forget the name of the other one. Anyways, my point in saying that is he has a 30,000 book library in one and a 20,000 book library in the other. So the man bought and collected books like mad. So now I don't feel so bad about buying a few thousand. Anyways, looking forward to reading this book because it's supposed to be entertaining and funny. And also it has to do with conspiracy theories, which are always fun. Next up, we have another interesting fellow, and that is none other than another Frenchman. Not that Umberto is a Frenchman, but Jules Verne was a Frenchman, and that is Jean Baudrillard. I think I'm saying that right. He's famous for his simulacra and simulation, in which he describes the hyper reality, which is this idea of like people using. I think he ties it more into semiotics, but the way I remember it is like the internet and like social media creates like this false version of something where it's like abstracted from the real thing, and it becomes like its own environment that's like separate from reality. Anyways, this is not simulacra and simulation, even though I do have that text, which I ordered it new, and it's like a print to order or whatever. What is it called? Not print to order, print on demand. It's really ugly. This is not print on demand, thankfully, and this is The Transparency of Evil: Essays on Extreme Phenomena. So it's a collection of essays, and this guy knows how to name an essay, okay? Let me just read a few of the titles. Not all of them, just a few. Trans-aesthetics, superconductive events, Xerox and infinity, prophylaxis and virulence, necrospective, radical exoticism, like, this man knows how to name an essay to make it sound very interesting. So I'm looking forward to diving into this. I don't think it's even too long. Like, the essays are only like a few pages each, and it's under 200 pages, the whole thing. How's the flop? 7 out of 10, pretty good. And thirdly, we have another interesting fellow. That's 3 interesting fellows in a row. Wow. What luck, what luck. And that is none other than Jacob Boehme, The Way to Christ. Now, this book, I think it might be one of the rarest ones I have in my collection. That's not saying a lot, because I don't collect rare books. I mostly just buy the cheapest ones that are all beat up. But I did some research, and I couldn't find another copy that looked like this. It's from 1964. Jacob Boehme is a 17th century, a German mystic. Hugely influential in occult circles, also influenced Hegel, who called him the very first German philosopher. He was into, like, the first German idealist. Excuse me. And this is, he was born in 1575. At 25 years old, so 1600, he has this mystical vision while looking at a ray of sunlight into a metal bowl. And he has this, like, mystical union or something, and he spends the rest of his life, like, writing about it. And so this text apparently is like him describing how to achieve enlightenment. Anyways, many of his ideas were heterodox and considered heresy. So take it with a grain of salt, of course. But this is like a super interesting piece of history right here. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Unfortunately, it's in hardcover, but you can't win them all, folks. You can't win them all. So I guess we're testing the flop. The flop is 0. But it does look like that wiggly pencil trick. Do you guys ever do that in elementary where it looks like the pencil's made of rubber? It almost looks like that. Maybe not. I'm tripping. Okay, lastly but not leastly, we have a 4th interesting fellow. But I think the name is very fun to say, but I think it's actually a pseudonym. At least that's what historians think. And that is Quintus Curtius Rufus. That's a lot of us endings. Quintus Curtius Rufus. And he wrote The History of Alexander, written in the 1st century, super long time ago. The oldest manuscript we have is 9th century, but still, that's pretty crazy. And this guy was a historian, and he wrote about Alexander the Great, also known as, I think, like the Alexander the Third of Macedon or something like that. Anyways, ancient Greek king, tutored by none other than Aristotle until age 16. He went around to conquer a lot of the Mediterranean area, Egypt, West Asia, like India, one of the greatest military campaigns of all time. And if we didn't have this book, we wouldn't really know too much about Alexander the Great. So this is a very important text in the history of the Western world. Do I know much more about what's inside here? Not really. I think it's just a biography. Although I will note that a lot of it is missing. Not in this copy, but in terms of the entire history of Alexander. A lot of the original manuscripts were lost. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, yeah, very interesting book haul today. I'm really happy with. There weren't as many today, but good finds. Which I think that'll be the trend from now on, because I've purchased a lot of what I'm looking for. And so now when I'm at the bookstore and I see like, oh, that's a sweet copy of Sweet Thursday by John Steinbeck. Oh, I have that at home already. Or, oh, nice copy of Rasselas by Johnson. Already have it, right? So getting to that point now. Anyways, the short story that I want to talk about from O'Connor this week is Greenleaf. This one actually won her the O. Henry Award in 1957. She won the award, I think, 3 times total, so that's a good track record. O. Henry, of course, being the famous American short story writer. He wrote a ton. Actually, I have his complete works, and it takes 2 volumes in hardcover, so I'm not sure how many that is. Well over 100. So, anyways, she won it 3 times, which is great. Now, what is Greenleaf about? See if I can not bungle the summary here. So, we have a similar situation to the one a few weeks ago, and I'm forgetting the name of it. But you have like an older lady who is widowed, who owns a farm, and she has people on the farm working for her. That's the situation. And so the owner of the farm, her name is Miss May. She has 2 like 30-year-old kids. One of them sells insurance, and the other one's a teacher. So neither of them are like interested in doing farm work, and they're both unmarried too. So they're not very successful. Well, I mean, they're successful in a sense, but they're not like, you know, not successful in their mother's eyes. Anyways, she has like higher hopes for them. She would have hoped that they would have been into the farm work and married, but they're neither of those things. Anyways, the family living on her property that helps her with the farm are the Greenleafs. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the symbolism afterwards, but Greenleaf, that's like new, fresh, growing potential, right? So Mr. Greenleaf is kind of just like, not a bum, but he's just like kind of lazy, and like she'll tell him to do something 5 times and then he finally does it. Sounds like my little brother. He means well. But anyways, then we have Mrs. Greenleaf, his wife, and she is kind of a foil for Mrs. May. So Mrs. May is a Christian, but she's kind of like a shallow Christian, and she's kind of like a smug morality, and she doesn't actually believe in it. She's just kind of a cultural Christian. Whereas Mrs. Greenleaf is very devout, but not devout in a sort of a conventional pious way, but more so in like an earnest, like heartfelt way. She'll clip, she does this thing called faith healing, where she clips out all the bad stories in the newspaper, goes into the forest, buries it, and then like cries and like prays over top of the pile, which is like just kind of strange and like fanatic behavior. But anyways, the good part about Mrs. Greenleaf is that she's authentic, right? She truly believes and follows through on her belief, and she's very earnest. And she also acknowledges her sin, whereas Miss May thinks she's like the ultimate ruler over the farm and kind of her own god. Anyways, that's all to say that the Greenleaf, they have 2 sons and 5 daughters. The 2 sons are older, they served in the war, and they ranked quite high while they were there, whereas the elder of the 2 Mrs. May's sons, was also in the war, but he didn't rank very high because he wasn't a hard worker. And then both of them married these nice French ladies, brought them back to America, and started a farm with government money because they got pension from the army, and they bought all this new equipment, and they're killing it. Like, they're businessmen, like farmers, like they're just doing awesome. They have a bunch of kids, so they're kind of like conventionally successful in Mrs. May's eyes. And at some point in the story, she does say like, "I wish the Greenleaf boys were my sons, and then you guys were the Greenleafs," which is a devastating thing to say to a kid, even though they're 30. That's still very rude. Anyways, what actually happens in terms of plot? So there's a bull that is escaped onto Mrs. May's farm. Now, she does milk production, dairy production, so she doesn't want this bull running around in her herd, because then if he can potentially lower the quality of the genetic stock. That's what Mrs. May says. So she keeps saying, "Mr. Greenleaf, like, get the bull out of here." And he's like, "Oh, okay, like, I'll do it." And then it takes him like 5 days. And in this time, the bull like does jump the fence and like gets in with the female cows. And then she's kind of like blaming him for it. And it turns out that the bull actually belongs to the Greenleaf boys, and he escaped from their farm. And so eventually she takes Mr. Greenleaf in her car, drives out into the field to like drive the bull into the different field to shoot it. And then the bull like escapes into the forest. Mr. Greenleaf goes after it. Mrs. May is like getting impatient. She honks the horn, gets out of the car. The bull runs out of the forest and gores her to death. And Mr. Greenleaf runs out and shoots the bull. That's the end of the story. In terms of themes, of course you have the foil between Mrs. May and Mrs. Greenleaf, where Mrs. Greenleaf is, like I said, authentic and humble, whereas Mrs. May is kind of like this tyrant. You also have the interplay of the classes. So Mrs. May states many times that she's like afraid that the Greenleafs are going to come up and like kind of take over the farm, but she kind of sees them as like white trash, like scum, which kind of parallels the bull from the Greenleafs coming in and wrecking the genetic stock of her is it sows? Female cows? Sows? I don't know. Maybe I'm brain farting. Anyways, that's that one aspect of it. And there's also some like sexual imagery as well. It's very subtle, but of course a bull is sort of a archetypal symbol for like fertility, male fertility. And at the end, when the bull gores her, Flannery O'Connor says that it gores her in her lap, which is kind of like a strange thing to add. So there's also this And I think that's playing still off the idea of class and like these younger, more virulent and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like potent young men that she sees as white trash are actually more successful than her own sons. So it kind of inverts her view of how the world works. But yeah, I think I'm just spinning my wheels. Anyways, thanks for watching. We have more stacks on the floor, so I'm running low. I'll have to go to the store again, but I'll try to make more videos every week. In terms of stuff that I'm reading, I'm just about done Brothers Karamazov, so you can expect a part 4 video soon for that. I've got literally like 30 pages left. Very good. What else? I'm about a third of the way through Jane Eyre and about a third of the way through Brockton Brown's Wyland, so those will come soon as well. A while ago I finished reading Northrop Frye's The Educated Imagination, so I'll see if I'll make a video about that. That's nonfiction though, so I can't just like riff a summary. I have to actually go through and take notes on it again, so we'll see if I get to that. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, subscribe to the newsletter. I don't know when you're watching this, but when I'm recording this, it just came out today, February 1st. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks. See ya.